Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries podcast. We've got another one of our urgent injury updates because there's been big news from the Champions League. Liverpool have lost their striker, Bobby Firmino, to injury. So let's talk about that first then before we get into the analysis of how it might affect the team. What's happened to Firmino?
Yeah, of course, it was a great night for Liverpool. The one downside was the withdrawal of Roberto Firmino, which Jurgen Klopp confirmed as a hamstring-related problem. Now, we do know that Firmino has recently suffered a similar setback and returned to the squad after spending a month on the sidelines. Now, again, we don't know the extent of the problem, other than the fact that Roberto was straight down the tunnel, so he knew immediately that there was a problem there with the hamstring. And typically what we tend to see, and we know this period of when we return post-injury, that there is a high re-injury or recurrence rate. That's happened this time. And normally, when you're looking at a potential return to play timeline, again, you could similarly add maybe another 7 to 10 days on. So it wouldn't surprise me if Firmino could be somewhere in the region of maybe 4 to 6 weeks on the sidelines, although Image will confirm the severity of that injury.
And I mean, talking about that, we talk quite often about hamstring injuries, risk of re-injury. A re-injury has happened. Does that mean that it's even more likely that there might be another re-injury? And so one of my favourite phrases that you use, will Liverpool be using kid gloves on him, kind of being very careful when he does come back?
Yeah, I mean, he has to be managed, very, very carefully, particularly if we're looking at maybe a return in early to mid-December. That's just ahead of potentially a very hectic festive fixture period. And of course, there will be heavy rotation in and around that time with games, coming thick and fast. And while at the minute, you're trying to juggle those three attacking places between the four, now it seems as if Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, and now Diogo Jota are all locked into those places. So it's got to be a case of, managing those players carefully with Jurgen Klopp, because what he doesn't want to do is potentially risk losing another player.
And so let's analyse then the kind of loss to Liverpool, because they've been fantastic at the moment. Team data is unbelievable. But Bobby Firmino, I think, is quite a unique forward in his skill sets. People quite often associate being a striker with just scoring loads and loads of goals. But he's very skilled in also creating for the team. I've got some numbers here, but Ben, what do you imagine is going to be effect on the team, if there is any at all?
For me, it was always a coin toss between who was actually going to start between Firmino and Jota. I always considered Mo Salah and Sadio Mane as the two players who were, potentially always nailed down in that starting 11, although we have seen Mane rested in recent game weeks. So in terms of actual outputs, I don't think there's a massive downturn in performance levels. I think, Liverpool will continue to do what they do, and that's scoring goals with brilliant attacking data. The concern going forward potentially is, with these games coming so thick and fast, and the intensity of the Premier League is, all of these players now are, how does Jurgen Klopp manage these players? And ultimately, will this result in maybe a slight tweak in formation and how they set the teams up? So, those players can, get some rest and reduce load in their legs.
Yeah, and looking as well. So, like I said there, Firmino's got a very special skill set. He can create for other players around him. But looking at the Liverpool data this season, I don't think they'll be too adversely affected. The chief kind of architects in that team this season have been Salah, TAA, and kind of no surprises that Jota and Robertson have also kind of chipped in there. And maybe one that's kind of going under the surface as well is Jordan Henderson. He's got 3 big chances created, 12 chances created in total. So there's creativity through the team. I don't think that we're going to see some sort of shoring up in terms of output, because they're way ahead of everybody else in terms of expected goals. They're way ahead of anybody else in terms of big chances created. 34 big chances created for the team compared to Man City's 28 in second. And then they've got 150 total chances created. It's kind of obscene numbers. It's brilliant. It's Liverpool back to the best if anything, maybe that they found a new level, like we've seen with Salah. And the only kind of big difference is maybe the expected goals involvement. Firmino has 101 minutes per XGI, whereas Jota is 123.6. They both scored 4 goals, but kind of flipping it as well, Jota is better at putting the goals away. He has a 20% conversion rate, whereas Firmino has a 33.3. And we've kind of seen that as well. When we've analysed data previously, Ben, we've said that maybe Jota is the better goal scorer and Firmino is the better chance creator. But they don't really need a chance creator at the moment, do they, Ben?
And not really. I mean, Liverpool just continue to do what they're doing. Almost they started the season really, really well, and they've kicked on and they've raised the bar. In fact, I think the bar's gone. I think the ceiling's gone. It just went through the roof, particularly the performances of Mo Salah, arguably the best player in the world at this moment, certainly on current form. And therefore, how much are you really going to miss Firmino when you've got the likes of him? But you've got Diogo Jota as a more than, I wouldn't even say he's a deputy. I wouldn't even say he's he's backup. They're so close in terms of their skill set and their performance output. There's going to be very little change in that Liverpool team. It will just be a case of, unfortunately, they're not going to have their minutes managed as Jurgen Klopp would have liked.
So, final question for you then, Ben. Looking at it from a fantasy Premier League perspective, does this mean that Jota, as a 7.5 midfielder in the best attack in the Premier League, does that mean that he has to be in your team now?
Yeah, if you're looking for a silver lining as a fantasy manager and you have concerns previously about who to start, well, now with Firmino out of the equation, those 3 players look absolutely locked in, and therefore Jota, can be a go-to. He can be relied upon as much as you can rely upon any Premier League manager picking a starting 11.
Well, there you go. I think a really good insight into the timeline with Firmino and what Jota brings to the team as well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're doing our usual content like this, great insights, great analysis from one of the best experts around Premier League injuries and data from you, Ben. But also we're doing some other stuff in terms of Movember. We've got links in the description. Do kind of get involved. You can kind of see the things emerging. I need a shave to kind of bring it back. It's already growing. It grows very quickly for me, but I do still look like a teenager at the moment. However, I'm going to wish everybody the best of luck, and we will see you again very soon.